Water. I just needed some. We all need it. We know that water is the source of life. There can be no life without water. We begin life immersed in water as human beings. And as Christians, we are immersed in the water of Basil. So today we think about that water, the water God gave to his people thirsty in the desert. The water, Jesus says, comes from him because he is the source of life. And when we are baptized in him, we receive that life. Now, in the gospel passage, there are two sets of conversations that go on. First of all, the conversation with the woman. And she's plainly a flighty kind of person, flippant, kind of trying to get around what Jesus is talking about. She doesn't quite understand, but she's talking in a way that leads us to think that she really wants to, but she can't quite get it. So Jesus addresses her and he speaks to her. He reminds her that she does not have a very savory past. She's had 5 husbands, or at least she's lived with 5 men, and she's living with another one now. Jesus is right out in the open about things like that. He doesn't beat around the bush. He says, you've been leading a bad life. You have to change. But she kind of tries to get around it by getting him into a theological discussion. Where should we worship, here or in Jerusalem? And Jesus speaks the words to her that he candidates today, and he speaks to all of us, that we have to worship God in spirit and in truth. And we have to look into ourselves and look into the world around us and realize that the Spirit of God and his truth is what gives us life. And that in the midst of a world in which there is lying and deceit and violence, the Spirit and the truth of God, which we recognize, comes to them through us. The disciples come along and they've got food for Jesus to eat. And once again, people don't understand what Jesus is talking about. He says, I have food to eat that you don't know about. And they're saying, well, did somebody get here with provisions before we did? He says, no, that's not what I'm talking about. The food that I have is to do the will of God, in God's presence. And again, that is what we are asked to think about in this Lenten season, to accompany our candidates as they think about it more deeply and prepare to receive the Easter sacraments. All of this comes down to just one idea, just one issue. That's the person of Jesus himself. He approaches people always as one person speaking to other persons. Jesus speaks to people for who they are. He speaks to them as human beings because he is a human being. And he understands what human beings go through. So the object of our Lenten observance, the object of all of our Christian life, is to see everything through the lens, we might say, of Jesus Christ. Jesus is the one who speaks to each and every one of us personally. He speaks to our candidates. He speaks to our whole community. He is the one who comes from God. He seeks to bring us along with him to the presence and the joy of God. So that's what we are celebrating in this Lenten season, what we do to accompany our candidates for the sacraments, to focus our ideas, our thoughts, our minds and hearts always on the one person who alone brings us to God, who speaks the word in spirit and in truth. And he wants that spirit and truth to be present in us and to shine out of our lives all the days of our lives.